on the Toddcast Cleveland, we welcome Doug Howard. Growing up in New Jersey, Doug was introduced to music by his family, of which the craft goes back many ages. Early in his music career, he started off as a session musician in the New York City circuit. Doug then eventually joined the band Touch, whose second release was produced by our hero, Todd Rundgren. Upon the album's completion, Doug resigned from Touch and briefly replaced Chasm Sultan in Todd's Utopia during Chasm's support tour for his then upcoming solo endeavor. During Doug's time in Utopia, which we'll get into our discussion today, Doug is co-credited for Feet Don't Fail Me Now, and I'm Looking at You, but I'm Talking to Myself, on Utopia's 1982 Network Records release.
Upon Chasm's return, Doug joined the Edgar Winter Group, replacing the band's original bassist in a touring capacity for many years. As well as being part of TR's 11-voice orchestra during the a cappella tour, Doug has been allotted many musical undertakings over his career, much of which we'll discuss with him today. Catch Doug on his Nod to Todd performances this year. The focus of these shows, Doug has put together an evening of songs and stories spotlighting his work, co-writing, friendship with Todd, and tunes that inspire them both. Currently, these dates are on the East Coast, and make sure to check them out if you can. We are very excited to start this Toddcast with the affectionately known 10-Minute Utopian and learn about his musical career and journey with Todd as the collaborator and a friend.
So excellent. Welcome to the Toddcast.
Thank you.
Doug Howard.
Thank you for having me.
As you are in the history books, are you happy with the title of the 10-Minute Utopian?
No, I consider myself actually the Gary Sharon of Utopia.
That's awesome. Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I was in Utopia for about a half an hour, but my work with Todd was like part of it was Utopia, part of it was I did the a cappella tour with Todd. And did a lot of, I don't know, I was a house guest a lot, and just a lot of time in the studio, either writing songs for Utopia or just writing songs to write songs, or just getting into trouble. But I didn't really, it's funny, you mentioned earlier, I wasn't as familiar with Todd as I possibly should have been prior to working with him. I met him when he was producing a second album for a band that I was in called Touch, which was kind of a 2-hit, 3 maybe hit wonder that, if you blinked, you missed it. And shortly after, and it's funny because I had quit that band. I had left that band just prior to that album. And the manager called me up and he said, well, Todd Rundgren's producing. Would you like to maybe come back? And I said, yeah, I'll come back for that. And as I got up there, I very quickly, became aware of the depth of what was going on, and my glaring lack of knowledge. And so shortly thereafter that album, I got a call from Chris Anderson, and he said, Todd would like to know if you'd like to step in for Kaz while he's doing his solo thing. And I said, yeah. So that was pretty much how that started.
So you get engaged by Chris, and was it just the I can't think of the word, but was it just the name Todd Rundgren? You're like, I know that name. I know he's a good producer. That's why I'm going to come back. Like, I understand that.
I was a little more knowledgeable than that. I was aware of the Nas.
Okay.
I was aware of his bigger hits. I was also aware of his work as a producer, obviously, because at that time, I mean, he was, pentultimate.
Yeah.
He's top shelf in terms of A-list producers, and so definitely. I mean, I was somewhat aware, but I was not completely aware of just how much was going on, and in that mind of his, until I got up there and started working.
Mm-hmm. And our listeners know that, Todd is very direct in his production style. You smile because you know it probably better than us at home. What was that like, kind of stepping back into a band that you left And hearing Todd be as direct, and hopefully you continue to give that smile every time he was direct. But what was that like? Just do you remember what your thought process was?
I think actually that was kind of the budding of a friendship, uh,
Uh-huh.
because everything he came, he was just right to the point. He would cut right to what the problem was,
Mhm.
uh, and whether you listen to him or not, that was another story and another general source of amusement during that production.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. I liked it.
Good.
Cut right to it. You
Hmm.
know.
Now, would he be like against like multiple takes, or he's just like, all right, just finish it, or like, how did that go? Like, was he very abrupt with stuff, or?
Actually, no, Todd, he would cut to the meat of the matter of the song. It was always about
Mhm,
the song, and I completely agree with that. I mean, if you can't pull off a song just sitting at a piano with the melody
Mm.
or the or a guitar, and just with raw fleshing it out, and if the song doesn't make itself apparent right there, you've got an issue. You've got an issue with either your writing, because all the toys and the effects and which are constantly evolving, and it's not going to make a difference if
mhm,
the song isn't there. The song isn't there. Period.
mhm.
And I like that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is good
From
advice.
So for my research, like you made your first album with Touch, and then you left, made a new album, and then you said Todd would produce it. Like, were the songs ready? Because I've learned by reading like articles and things about Todd, he's like, if you're not ready in the studio, I'm not producing you. Like, was that ever a thing, or like
No.
getting back into the band? Yeah.
With us, I mean, all the songs for the second album were pretty much written, and I believe demos were definitely sent because while actually over the years while I was hanging around up there, a lot of demos and bands would sort of come through, drift through, and Todd was pretty direct whether he wanted to produce it or not.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it was generally based on that, so it wasn't just a question of yeah, sure, and everybody walks in blind. No.
And that second Touch album, it never released until like a decade or so later, right? Is that correct?
Touch was much more, it's like the old joke, we're really big in Japan, dude. But it's true. Touch was much, much bigger in Europe and
Huh.
Japan and pretty much everywhere else except home.
Huh.
Uh, and that first album, did really, really well for us over there. As a matter of fact, this year they've got us doing a reunion in the UK, which I'll be doing next fall.
Wow.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. We're going to be. They gave us a nice billing at a thing called Firefest in Manchester, which is a 3-day festival, and then we're going to.
Oh, hold on. Firefest is the thing from like
No,
8 years
no,
ago.
it's
You
not
remember?
that
Okay.
Not
Okay.
that
All right.
Firefest.
Okay. I was like, hold on. Wait. Just let you know.
I thought that first too.
not. It's not FEMA tents and bologna sandwiches.
Yeah. Goddamn.
Dollars. No, it's a completely different thing that has been going on in Manchester, UK, or
Huh.
thereabouts. For this is actually they haven't done one in 10 years, and this is the first one they're doing back. Anyway, long story short,
Okay. Yeah.
uh, Touch, was big over there. We had a couple of minor hits over here, but I mean, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I actually wasn't really feeling it on parts of the first album. And there was so much going on in New York at the time. I was getting offers from other bands, and I had a couple of standing offers. Matter of fact, I had a standing offer from the Edgar Winter Group. Whenever I wanted to come in, because they were making Dan Hartman, they were making some changes,
Hmm.
and Edgar. So that's actually right where I went.
Okay.
Uh, like sort of mid-album with Utopia. It was like, well, Kaz wants to come back. It's like, all right, Edgar's like going out in a week, and I've got to get down to New York, and I've got to learn, his whole show in a week.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I can't fool around here. It's like, are we doing this or are we not?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
So
respect that. Yeah.
He is one of the sweetest people and that band was one of the some of the most fun I've ever had in a band.
Hmm.
That show was pretty much the same show for the most part every night, and it just always blew the place up. Always,
Yeah, I bet. Oh, I
Nice.
bet. Yeah. How
always
long? So how long were you working with him?
3 or 4 years maybe.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
I
Yep.
remember when I was a little kid going through my dad's record collection, seeing that Edgar Winter album where he's like going like he's got his shirt off, he's going like this. I'd be like, who is this guy? And I always used to say, I'm a big baseball fan, and if I were a baseball player, which I always sucked, but my walkout song would be Frankenstein. I think that'd be the coolest
That would be cool.
be the most badass walkout baseball song. I've been saying this since I was like 12 years old. I'm 30 now, and I'm like, I did like that'd
would be
be the
good.
coolest thing ever.
Y'all
Like,
ready for the monster?
yeah.
That would be good. What's the first time you show up with your gear? Do you recall what that was like?
Well, there were a couple of times. Todd had me run out to a show out in Long Island to do sound check with everybody. And then a couple other times. It's kind of a meet and greet hang kind of thing. Had me up to the house a couple of times in the studio there. What was it? Oh yeah, Chris actually sent somebody down to my house with every single album that Todd had ever done in a bag.
Oh,
Said
wow.
here, said here. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what do I do with this? And I was, flailing a little bit, when I first walked in there, but I kind of got the hang of, what I was supposed to know and what I was, what my job was, what was my job. It's interesting because, it was all business, for the most part, when we're in the studio, but uh, in terms of hanging outside, I would spend most of my time with Todd. I spend most of my time writing with him too, and in the studio down the little hill there in the
Hmm.
glen. And yeah, so nothing threw me, I guess. At that point, I was somewhat seasoned, although I was still a child in other ways, very much so. My biggest focus was I just wanted to know what my job was.
Sure. Of course. Yeah.
Now, Doug, like speaking of being a child, like how did you get into playing music? Like, what's your background on that?
Oh, well, I come from a family of thespians, entertainers going back like 5 generations.
Mhm.
Oh, nice.
My grandfather actually was Joseph E. Howard, who was a really huge star back in his day, and he was known as a librettist. He was a songwriter, and you guys do know his songs still because they're in the American Songbook.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I actually do one of them during this little show that I'm doing. Uh,
Mhm.
but he wrote "Goodbye, My Lady Love," "Hello, My Turtle Dove," and he
Oh,
also
okay. Yeah.
he also wrote "Hello, My Baby," "Hello, My Honey," "Hello."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
a bunch of others. Another one of his songs that I mean, everybody has covered this song. And in my house, most kids when they were really little were learning. Like I've been working on the railroad, and the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and
Hmm.
I had to learn this particular song if I wanted to eat. And so that became a very big, quick part of my repertoire being young. But I didn't. I grew up not really knowing how to do anything else. It's kind of like astronauts. They only know how to go up. I really didn't understand how the real world worked. To me, it was, you're on a stage and you thank the man and you do your job and you look for the next gig.
Mhm.
That was pretty much how I was raised. But I started playing, I guess, when I was about seriously, I really wanted to play from I think the time I was 7. I first picked up a ukulele and
Oh.
actually learned a complete repertoire with it. And then became a very mediocre guitarist. Uh, but bass, for whatever reason, grabbed me. It got
Mhm.
me. And then the fact that I was a singing bass player made me extremely popular very quickly. Uh,
Hmm.
and I was like 16 in the clubs, in the rock circuit in New Jersey and Long Island. I was in the clubs constantly with bands,
Hmm.
and that didn't work out so well for 8:30 a.m. English class. That was This is the life we chose.
Now, what era would that be? Like New York? You talking like CBGBs? Like
Oh no, that was later.
later?
Whoops.
That's much later, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you got to
this this
rewind.
this is the 70s actually.
Okay.
The late early 70s, which was a really magical time to be in music or just to be alive. It was really unbelievable and a magical time creatively. There was so much music coming from so many different directions and art and fashion and social issues. It was a nonstop party. Not really. I was actually pretty serious, but at times, but it was pretty magical. It was a magical time to come up.
Did when you were playing these circuits, especially around that age, did you ever cross band with or cross path with Chasm's group um, at all? Vanilla something? I can't remember what they were called. Cherry Vanilla. Cherry Vanilla. That's what it was.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, sure. That was his first foray into
Yeah.
Hmm.
that. Yeah, I remember. I don't think I'd ever seen Cherry perform, but I remember being in Max's when I shouldn't have been there, way too young.
Oh, yeah. Max's Kansas
Kansas
City,
City.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Cherry was a fixture along with a bunch of other people. And you mentioned CB's. CB's came later. Max's was like the place.
Mhm.
Mercer Arts Center, which fell down actually. There was that movie about the record label that what the heck was that on HBO? Where
Oh,
the guy sees a band akin to the Dolls, and the place falls down while during the concert. That's not quite what happened, but
Oh my
um,
God. I remember that movie.
yeah.
what the hell's it called?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that actually did happen, but it happened during some band's rehearsal, and everybody got out, but the building fell down. And there, New York in the 70s was just an incredible place to be. It was cheap, it was crazy, it was dirty, it was an absolute creative stew pot. And there's no way that you could stay away from that. Although I did take a period of time, I did go to Berkeley for a while, but I did my obligatory year and a half, and
So you're doing these you get acquainted with Todd.
yeah.
What's the friendship there after Kaz returns? You eventually find out, oh, you guys actually put out that album. What is that? How does that all transpire?
Well, I mean, in terms of Todd and I used to amuse each other a lot. Like when I was in the studio with Touch, I was bored. I have to be honest, I was bored out of my mind. And there was some broken furniture that was down in the main room. I started fixing furniture.
Wow.
You know, it was perfectly good furniture, just needed a little attention. And Todd nicknamed me Geppetto. And then
Wow.
I just started like creating weird sculptures out of coffee cups and just I don't know. And I think we just started recognizing a sense of the bizarre in each other, of like, and I just liked his directness, and I used to get in a lot of trouble in that band for being so direct myself. I just used to call shit as I saw it, and I just wasn't going to sit there and waste my time with stuff that just I knew wasn't going to float or didn't have legs. And rock and roll has, as particularly when you're young and you're trying to make your bones, you got a specific shelf life. If you don't, make your mark, uh, you know, uh, by a certain point, you might want to start thinking about going back to school. you know, and I had an agenda, and I wanted to, I didn't want to, horse around with stuff that I didn't think would fly. So anyway,
Mm.
we started noticing that, I just used to amuse each other. So, I left Utopia, and I knew the album. I don't really think about it that much as to whether whether the album was going to come out. There was a label lined up for Utopia at that point, and I knew it would have a street date. But I have to be honest with you, I was literally off around the world with Edgar nonstop. Um, just that was my focus, and you know, um, so I wasn't paying quite as much attention. I did notice that Feet Don't Fail Me Now got some traction, and I believe the video actually got some Grammy noise. Uh, and as a short film or something, I don't know, it was a category that they had. And then I'm looking at you, but I'm talking to myself. That also managed to somehow bubble around. But I didn't really see any of those guys, and outside of Todd. Uh, uh, but what happens when I wasn't out with Edgar? Todd and I still would get together. I'd be a house guest up there, and we would write, or we would get in trouble. I mean, one day, we're hanging out in the house, and a guy shows up with a cannon, and hooked up to the back of his car.
Casual.
A real cannon, yeah, with
Wow.
gunpowder and cannonballs. And Todd and I looked at each other and went, "Okay, there's the afternoon," and that was the end of the garden shed.
Oh,
Wow.
That was it.
That's amazing.
For my
Yeah.
research, it's known that Todd likes fireworks and explosions.
So do I. Anything that explodes,
I do too. It's fun.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
it's a blast. In some circles, within the Todd camp, I'm kind of like the black sheep. I'm always getting him in trouble.
Oh man,
So
that's awesome.
with Utopia 82, with the network album, obviously you have the credit for songwriting credit for Feet Don't Fail Me Now as and with you. Any other songs that you recall working on that you probably should have gotten the credit for, or was adjacently evolved? Like what songs were you working on besides the named
I
one?
think I got a writer's credit for "Hammer in My Heart," which
Okay.
I know I had nothing to do with. That
Okay.
song, that song was written long. I don't remember that song at all. That was done after I left. So that was some kind of clerical error or something. But I
Okay.
remember, it's really no big deal. At this point.
Yeah.
But I do remember working on a couple of others in their nascent form. And actually, one of them I pull out during this little show I'm doing. This show I'm doing is actually not all Todd. I need to clarify here.
Mhm.
Truth in Advertising. It's a little over half Todd material, but it's also other material that influenced me. I know influenced him coming up because we recognized kind of early on that we kind of had similar upbringings in music. He had a lot of classical and particularly show music.
Mhm.
Show
Hmm.
played in his house, and of course in my house, that was the same case. I mean, every Broadway album, cast album was being played in my house, so we had a similarity there. And then the other thing that was going on was, Todd's a little older than I, but not that much, where the same, influences were happening. Top 40 radio back then was exactly that, top 40. And that's what you got. Whatever was on the top 40, that's what was played. So you were exposed to a lot of different type of material. And rock and roll, of course, grabbed us by the throat, but we were also listening to a lot of R&B. There wasn't the schism that there is now.
Mhm.
Um, and there wasn't the compartmentalization, of musical tastes, which is getting more and more and more granular, apparently. But we all were listening to the same stuff. So he and I had a lot of similar influences there. And in this show, I kind of outline that.
Okay.
Outline kind of what was going on and why we, were captivated by this. And I don't get too crazy with it. It's not a symposium, it's people are there to listen to songs and have a good time. But there are some stories like that that I think are salient.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I saw in the Nod to Todd promos, which I really like
The glasses. The glasses.
Yes,
That's the number one thing. Number one thing. That's the first thing I saw. I was like, whoa.
Done by oh my God, and I can't believe I don't have the name right in front of me. Hang on a second. That's done by a really big fan of Todd's.
Is it Bill Bricker?
Bill Bricker, thank you. God damn it. No, Bill, I didn't know Bill, but I liked his work.
Uh-huh.
I'd seen it online in terms of a number of Todd symposiums, and I reached out to him, and Bill was incredibly gracious.
Yes. Zach and I have interviewed Bill. One of our last
Bill's a great
interviews
guy.
was actually with him.
Yeah, and he really is a sweetheart, and he did me such a solid in terms of doing that. He did 2 logos for me. He did the glasses as well as the sort of mock-up of the Utopia.
Okay. Yep, he's a fantastic person. I'm really glad that you guys engaged and were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the show seems really exciting. So past the network album, doing the Edgar Winter stuff, still affiliated with Todd. How did you get associated with the 11? How did you become this guy?
Well, it was easy. I was a lot prettier then. Kidding. Okay, so we were doing song demos. I would go up and do song demos, looking to, just expand. Todd was incredibly gracious in having me up and working on songs of mine. Occasionally we would sit down and just sort of bang stuff together, see what it would turn into. I don't know whatever happened to half of it. And then one day I went up just to hang out. I said, hey, I want to come up and hang out. Sure. And so we went out to lunch, and I said, and we were talking about what we were up to. I was also doing a lot of jingles in New York at the time. I'd gotten into singing jingles. So I was doing a lot of session work, and Todd mentioned that he was doing this thing, which was all vocal. And I said, hello. And he said, well, I didn't think you'd want to do it. You've got all this session work going on. You don't want to jeopardize that. And I said, this is so nuts what you're doing. I have to be a part of it. So, please consider me. And he said, no, come on, let's go. So, next thing I know, we had rehearsals scheduled for a couple of weeks. We assembled a very unique and varied group of individuals. That was the first time, actually, that I'd worked with Kaz in any kind of capacity, because, bass players, there's generally only one of us in the band. But got to spend a number of weeks out with him and a group of truly unique. It was a circus. It was an interesting circus, and the audience really loved it. A lot of funny stories off that tour. We got stuck in the Sierra Nevada mountains in a snowstorm, and that's kind of similar to the Donner Party. A lot of jokes about that.
The first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
In a dark way, that's the first thing I thought of.
That's the first thing we all thought of too. It's like sax player Gary Window. Gary, you look really delicious. But wild. It was wild. It was fun. A lot of fun.
How long was that tour? Like a couple
Not
months?
that long. It was only about 6 or 7 weeks.
Okay, that's not bad. That's
Not
still
bad.
a lot for 11 people and to be in one van. But
how do you guys travel? All one van?
It was a bus.
Yeah.
With, we had our rolling house. But that was actually where I got my second nickname, which was Madonna. I was at the time, the 80s were really happening in terms of androgynous men look, early 80s, and So I used to wear a pile of makeup on stage, and suddenly I became responsible for the shopping bag full of makeup for the whole tour. And next thing I know, we all got bowling shirts because that was a big activity while we were touring, and mine had my nickname Madonna on it.
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
I don't know what happened to it.
That was my next question.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, where'd it go?
Dang.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love bowling shirts. I have tons.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite shirts to
I'd
wear.
like to see that. We could get one recreated, Zach, maybe if we find a copy.
Yeah.
Kind of ugly, but I don't know what happened to it. I don't know. It was a shame too, because that was pretty funny.
And then Todd interactions post acapella.
I got really busy with the weirdest tour, but one of the most successful things, I guess, commercially I ever did live. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was a producer of a lot of those theme shows that they do at the theme parks, like Raiders of the Lost Ark show and this and this.
Yeah.
And they were doing the story goes, I had a theatrical agent as well as a music people's thing. And my theatrical agent calls me, he goes, so you got this call. They want you to know if you're interested in being the singing narrator of a show entitled He-Man, She-Ra, and the Masters of the Universe Power Tour.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I hung up the phone because I thought he was just fucking with me. Excuse my ring, ring, ring. No, I'm serious. I'm saying, yeah. I don't know, man. He says, no, just hear me out. So it's based on He-Man and She-Ra. You know these characters? And I'm going, yeah. He says, and Castle Great and Skeletor. Okay. So they're taking it out on the road, and I'm going, click. Hung up again. I swear to God, I hung up again. He said, listen, stop screwing around. This is a very, very, very big production, and they need a live singer to act as the narrator because there are so many of these bloody characters that it's like Wagner's The Ring. And this is going to be a major production. You're going to be out for a long time. And you've been specifically requested.
Wow.
And I said, really? That means nobody else wants to do it. Well, he's part of that too. I said, all right, let me hear what's going on. So I flew out to LA and met the director, Tony Christopher, and my friend who had thought of me, Forbes Candlish. And next thing I know, they offered me went back to New York and I got an offer, which I turned down. And I turned down the offer like 2 or 3 times until I had a package that was sort of commensurate with the bizarreness and the potential, weirdness of doing this thing. And I said, okay, here we go. So I got really, really wrapped up with that.
Wow.
And I was out with I was songster, which we outgrossed Genesis that year in terms of tickets.
Wow.
The only act that sold more, we were the number 2 that year in Polestar, and the only act that sold more tickets was Billy Joel in that particular year. And
what's interesting about that is that was like late 80s, right? If I remember from seeing that on your website.
Yeah.
Were they taking IPs on the road at that point, or was that like kind of the first of that before like Disney on Ice and all that? Like,
this was kind of an evolution that I think was done once and was never done again.
Okay.
It was so expensive. We were like 3 tour buses, 8 trucks, 2-day setup, 1-day breakdown. It was, and the show itself was a combination of an Ozzy show, Wagner's The Ring, and a roller derby. It was all wrapped into one, and so it became pretty apparent, I think, to the whole like industry that does these sort of things that's that's a pretty wacky place to go. We're not going to do anything quite that wild anymore. Uh, but it was I still to this day, get requests to go to this or that all these kids that went to see that show still remember that character. So
Wow.
um but I was out. So anyway, as it relates to Todd, I hadn't seen him because I was out in LA, or I was in, I don't know, Montreal, or I was on the road constantly with the show. I was living the show. I was out for about a little over a year, um, between rehearsals and being out on the road. So we kind of drifted apart a little bit. And then I got into the business of music strictly by accident, which led to my having a company that does music video promotion and distribution, and got into publishing as well. And that kind of put me in the unique position, kind of like what Todd had, where he could produce albums and not have to worry about making the record label happy.
Hmm.
And I could run this business or be involved in this end of the business, and I could turn down stuff that would get me divorced again, which would allow me to have a life. And I could say yes to things and I could say no to things.
Hmm.
So I kind of became, I don't know, it wasn't a constant fight to get back on a tour bus, to get back on the best of tours, to be
Yeah, I get it.
Hmm. Yep.
competing for this, competing for that,
Yeah.
competing for these slots on these A-list, B-list tours. I didn't have to do that. And that allowed me to just basically make music if I wanted to. Uh, and because the music, I don't know, there was, I wasn't beholden to anybody else. So that's when I ended up doing the Stun Lear album, which was another band that blew up in Europe, in the UK and everywhere else but here. But that album, I'm absolutely astounded that that album still to this day has legs in amongst those fans.
Mm.
Because in terms of touring, I think that band maybe did 6 shows all told. That was it.
Wow.
Wow.
And then the album blew up long after the band had sort of, gone our separate ways. So anyway, as it relates to Todd, I think we reconnected early 2000s, somewhere thereabouts, maybe about 20 years ago, maybe.
Hmm.
And I would show up at shows once in a while, and we go out to dinner.
Hmm.
In terms of working together, there wasn't necessarily an opportunity for that.
Sure.
Uh, but he'd come over to my house, once or twice, and I don't know, still like hanging out with each other.
Sure.
I know he scares people, but I don't know, didn't scare me. I mean, I thought he was funny, and I liked his
Yeah.
direct. Always liked his directness. You know?
From what I understand about Todd, and I never met Todd. I have strictly a parasocial relationship with Todd. My first word that I could ever speak when I was a kid was Todd, and the first letter I could ever write was R. Because in the mid '90s, when I was born, he was the artist formerly known as TRI. So that's just how I knew him. But what I understand about Todd,
Wow, I am old.
yeah, from what I understand about Todd, and everybody tells me, it's all about what mood you catch him in. If he feels playful enough, he'll be playful enough with you. But as far as fans go, it's kind of just what side of the bedroll he gets out of. So as to add to your I know he scares people thing. That's just what I understand about him, but could be wrong.
I don't know. People ask me a lot about Todd, and there are certain things. First of all, in terms of respecting his privacy, his world, his headspace,
Mhm.
and what friendship we have. Uh, there's certain things I just don't talk about because I have no business talking about them.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that it's like it's like when John Lennon, sort of disappeared into the Dakota. He got sick and tired of being Beatled.
Yep.
And it can be. I know, from watching other friends of mine that have got, very serious celebrity, it's exhausting.
Yep. Yeah.
And respecting someone's space in that kind of position, because people always want stuff from you. People always
Yeah.
want stuff from you.
Uh,
And
as Todd put it in Healing, everybody wants an egg from the golden goose.
Yeah.
yeah, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's difficult, and I think if anybody you just have to respect that at the end of the day, celebrities and people that are unique in their talent and their gifts to the world, you got to remember that they're still people too,
Yep.
you got just respect boundaries.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's really what that's like. It's like, I mean, same thing with Edgar Winter. It's like, how does Edgar stop being Edgar? That's impossible. The guy walks down the street, it's like Edgar Winter. You
Yeah,
know, how does he take a break from that?
it's true,
And
especially with the hair. It's kind of
yeah,
hard. It's kind of
yeah,
hard to hide from it.
I played with him so long, I ended up starting to look like.
Did you ever do any work with Johnny?
Yeah, a little bit. I would
Yeah.
sub for Johnny, or I would sub in Johnny's band if his bass player, for whatever reason, wasn't available. There was a thing called Blue Sky Records, which was Johnny, Muddy, Edgar, Roy Buchanan, who I also worked with,
Nice.
and actually David Johansen for a period of time.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
Oh wow.
and so there was a sort of a pool of us musicians that would get called. You had your band that you were basically with, and with me it was the Edgar Winter Group, but you were part of that little pool that if somebody needed somebody, and you get down to SIR, so and so. Next thing you walk in the door and there's Johnny in Muddy Waters. It's like, wow, I was fortunate in that.
I had the privilege to meet Johnny Winter once a very long time ago, which really wasn't that long ago, but he was very nice guy.
He- yeah, Johnny could be, he could be a little cranky sometimes, but it's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yep.
That's a cat that really knew what his music needed to sound like,
Yeah.
right out of the gate. Anytime Johnny knew what it had to sound like, period.
Hmm.
He had a vision. Same thing with, Roy's for that matter, and Edgar. You know, uh, they knew what it was supposed to sound like. And if it didn't sound like that, don't be surprised if they go all Buddy Rich on you.
Hmm.
I mean, they know their job, man. They know their
Yeah.
job.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
Going
awesome.
Buddy Rich on you. I like that.
Throwing stools at you.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
remember Bill Bricker, but I can remember Buddy Rich. I'm sorry, Bill. I love you. You know I do.
Bill knows he's loved. I'm really glad that you guys were able to engage on
That's
that.
awesome.
That is
Bill's a
fantastic.
friend of the show.
There's been a lot of music since it's come out. Sort of since you had probably last worked with him. So we were talking about Todd as the man. Now talking about Todd as the artist, moving into your Nod to Todd shows.
Hmm.
Doug as a Todd fan, what are some songs that you are just like still moved by with Todd, and how does it reflect into the show?
I have made a point of, giving a listen through just about everything that he's put out at one time or another since then.
Hmm.
And there have been some absolute jaw-dropping moments.
Hmm.
The thing I love about him, you can hear it, is that he does what interests him. He still does.
Hmm.
Which
If
is huge for an artist because most artists don't do that,
you don't
especially
get
from his era.
you don't get that luxury. You don't. I mean, I can remember my manager when I first got my first major record label deal, and I was with Thames Talent, which was Bruce Payne and Deep Purple and Rainbow. And I sat in his office and he said, "Okay, now you got your record deal. Here's the reality. You are no longer an artist. You are a mechanic. Your job,
Wow.
create music that sells records. If you don't want to do that, you have no business having a record deal." That's how it was laid out to me. And that kind of creeped me right the hell out.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah.
Like fast 22 years old. And I, get this multi-million-dollar deal out of the gate, and it's like all happening, man. Oh, here we go. And then you get this, like, okay, this is the reality. You sold
Yeah.
your soul, as it were.
Yeah.
And so he has, it always just becomes apparent to me that, he does what he hears, and the body of work, man, I think Stan is just a testament to thank God he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
the material I'm doing kind of sticks a little bit more to the tried and true, or tried
yeah.
and true rather, the more familiar songs.
Okay.
And it's kind of I mean, the way this whole thing started was my girlfriend asked me, play me a song. Play me a song. And I said to her, baby, that's great. But I'm a bass player. Are you going to go out and get a beer like everybody else does during the bass solo? And then I started hammering down on guitar, and I noticed that I was just suddenly drawn back to some Todd songs. And then next thing I know, I've got like this sort of arsenal of
Okay.
songs.
Interesting.
That's how that's how the whole thing came to be.
Yeah, I always tell my wife, I was like, yeah, you wanted like a folksy Americana acoustic guitar playing guy. Instead, you got a bass player, and I can't. It's not going to sound too good if I'm not plugged in trying to play acoustic for you. So
Exactly. The
yeah,
whole the whole house gets up and goes to the bathroom when you start soloing.
it's fine. It's fine. I know how to. I know how to sit in the pocket. I'll just do that instead.
When
Um.
when drums stop, bad thing happened. You know that joke.
So anything that you can particularly point out that you can go this track on Liars, something like that.
Uh, well, the first thing that comes to mind actually is when I was not as deeply familiar with Todd's material,
Hmm.
and then one of Chris's minions showed up at my apartment with a bag full of albums,
Right.
or
Right.
cassettes rather.
Oh, nice.
Remember cassettes?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And I started going through them, and the album that actually took my breath away was Healer. I said, "Oh my God, what have I gotten into here?" You
Hmm.
know, and I listened to that. And every once in a while, God, I have to go through the entire itinerary of albums here. Let me go. I liked White Knight and Arena.
Okay.
Arena
Really?
just, yeah, Arena blew my head off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really did, absolutely blew my head off.
Wow.
And last time I saw him, trying to remember what album had come out. He was doing heavy AV show with multiple panels and
Oh, it was Liars.
liars.
Yeah.
And that was
Mhm.
I think that was the last time we hung out.
Okay.
No, we hung out at my house late after that later on. But that show set, as he designed it, as I understand it, just to me typified, this cat does what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And to try to tell him otherwise at this stage of the game, not only are you going to get the hell out of here for a response, but you're doing yourself a disservice by not letting him do what he does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're gonna really miss out, you know.
Yeah. I wish you had seen him in 2013. He did an album called State.
Yeah.
And that is very out there.
Yeah.
You would have loved the live show. It was literally just him and a microphone that hung down in front of him.
Oh, is
He
that
wore
that pod thing that
Be-
he
be-
audience
no,
come?
No, that's
okay.
TRI.
That was TRI.
We should talk about that.
We should talk about that. So that's Zach and I's bread and butter. Is we weren't there, but we both, like, when we became friends, we were both
I was almost there.
yeah, well, yes. My parents went.
See, my parents went to the show and they left me
Yeah,
home.
my parents left me at home, but yeah, we were both like 6 months old, so whatever. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have brought him either. But anyway, when Zach and I became friends, we were like, "Oh, word, you're hip to TRI, No World Order? Hell yeah!" But you would have loved State. It was just Todd up there with a microphone and goggles, and then everybody had like Prairie Prince had like an electro kit, and Jesse was playing guitar, and the whole crowd fucking hated it. It was awesome because he was just doing his thing. They thought they were going to hear Leroy Boy. You know, they thought we were going to hear
Yep.
Can We Still Be Friends?
Right.
And he's doing dubstep. He's doing Todd Rundgren's version of dubstep. It was fucking awesome.
Well, listen, and this is why we love him.
Yeah.
No, this typifies. Well, what we're doing is a little bit more stricter to form, I guess, if there is
contemporary.
If there is a form.
Sure.
But as I was putting this thing together, it occurred to me in talking to a few other people within the tribe, or however you guys pronounce it, the tribe, that I'm kind of like a mystery to a lot of people, and it's not on purpose. It's just that's kind of the way the paths led. But this is sort of a way to introduce people that may be interested. I don't know. They'll learn about me as well as be sated with a good chunk of songs of his that I like, songs of his that grab my attention, and are very difficult to play, some of them. But there again, there's a lot of fun in the challenge.
So other than the contemporary songs, what are some of the more challenging ones that you're doing in the set, if you're willing to divulge?
I'm not going at this point to drop what songs we're doing. Because I noticed, for a variety of reasons, it's not a great idea, but trust me, I'll do my damnedest.
That's all right. That's what I wanted to hear. I love it.
One of the things I noticed that Todd sings a really beautiful, soulful falsetto in a lot of things. He's got a really well-developed falsetto, and I don't. And so what happens is I end up having to hit those high notes full voice, and they're pretty high.
Oh.
Yeah, and you lose a little control when you're doing that. Okay.
No, I remember being in the studio, and then one day we were doing background vocals, and he had me singing this ridiculously high note, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're killing me!" And he's going, "You can do it! Come on, you can do it!"
Oh, that's awesome.
He had me laughing so hard that I could barely do it, just couldn't catch my breath. He had me laughing so hard. But so that's one kind of thing that I've tried to find a way to make different. And of course, I mean, this isn't going to be, what is it, the routine I heard him talking about that had me in stitches. This isn't going to be a Guns N' Roses tribute. Okay. It was like, I asked my girlfriend at one point, I said, "Am I doing a tribute act?" And she goes, "Well, no, because you were in the band." So it's like, oh, okay. But it's a review, and it's a way for.
I like that. Okay. I like that.
I like that. I like that. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's a review in actually the classic sense. And it's stories, and
you got the narrative aspect to this. Okay. I like that, man. That's cool.
I would like to see a Not a Todd in Cleveland.
Yes.
There's probably a crowd. There'll be a crowd. People will come.
I was going to warn everybody. I do pretty much the most important sections of the songs that make them recognizable, but I am not Todd. I do not sound like Todd. I do not want to sound like Todd. And so therefore it's kind of, the songs and the energy and the intent is there, but yes, it's me performing them, and giving you my perspective on them. But in terms of other dates, yeah, man. I mean, I've gotten requests or inquiries, can you come to Chicago? Can you come to Milwaukee? I would love to. Hadn't planned on it. Had just been planning on doing this kind of regionally, because I have to go to Europe in the fall, and I've got to kind of block out a certain period of time to rehearse for those shows, because they're going to be somewhat physically demanding. People expect you to run around on stage like you're 20. And so that's going to take a little work, a little work on the Peloton,
Nice.
I will
And
say though, in Cleveland, there's a big Todd following.
Yep.
There's a
I,
lot of good venues that would book a show, and there'd be tons of people that would come.
if anybody, wants to see us someplace, as I say, I've been very kind. I've been hearing from, like for instance, got a word, would you like to come to Akron for the pre-Todd tour party?
Yep.
Hmm.
That in timing wise, just wasn't going to happen. And I
Okay.
didn't really know how appropriate it would be. It really would have been. I mean, when I first was doing this thing, I got in touch with Todd and his folk, and I said, just to be on the safe side
Yep.
here, this thing is evolving, and it's called a nod to Todd, and it's going to be, what it is. And he just goes, sure, do it. Sure. Okay.
Good.
But
That's really cool.
yeah, I wasn't really too sure. The timing was not right in terms of that. But my point in this long drawn out story is that if anybody would like to see us anywhere, they are more than welcome to send an email to me or to us. There is actually an email link on my website. There's also I'm easy to find on Facebook.
Shit,
And
I found you.
that's how you found
Yeah.
Shit.
picked over the rock, and there I was.
Yep.
um, but I'd, everybody got an idea or, where they would like to see us, if they'd like a way for us to follow up on that, network us. We will see about doing that before possibly the summer is over. And if we can't do it this year, the nice thing about this particular show is that it can be updated, and other things can be done. We're actually talking about morphing this into a summer of 71 show. And if you do your music history and see what was going on between 70, 71, 72, and
That's a big year. Big year.
maybe into 73, the music that was happening, and it's like I was talking about at the top of this interview, what was going on then was unbelievable. And so we may morph into that. But bottom line is, we'd love to come see you. Give us a little inkling as to where you would like to see us, and we'll definitely get back to you.
And the brick band of merry men that'll be joining with you on these Nod to Todd shows, is this Spoonbread?
It is not bread. No, it is a fantastic bass player by the name of Greg Hollister, who are guys that I just kind of fell into. Drew Nagel on keyboards, and Lee Jeffries on drums. And it's me on acoustic guitar. So what's odd about this is that it started out as kind of an acoustic thing to do, an unplugged thing to do.
Okay.
Very, very quickly became an enhanced unplugged. So lots of keyboards and some really pretty spectacular playing by the rhythm section. And my lame ass guitar. I'm getting better. I'm getting gooder.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, I have a surprise for both of you. I didn't tell Zach what I was going to do,
Bill
but
Oh shit.
here.
yeah. Oh, here he is. Hey, everybody, welcome, Bill. Zach, do you have any questions for our guest?
I had a few questions, but I have two questions. Do your thought first.
Oh, it's not a thought. I have a show and tell.
Oh.
Bill
Oh.
Brecker's here.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna ask a few questions, like eh, from like our research and talking to you today. What artists?
Oh wow, hey, that's cool. Let
What
me see that again.
artists?
Let me see that one more time.
Staff pass.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
cool.
Now
What
somebody screenshot it, and God help us.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Some kind of like machine gun questions.
Okay.
As you being an artist in the music biz for years, who is someone you wanted to work with that you would like to work with that you didn't?
It's not Dale Bazio.
Well, it's funny because I got to play with a lot of my high school heroes. But I think the one artist that I to this day probably would have just gone nuts to be able to play with was Jimi Hendrix.
You ever see him live?
No, no,
No.
no.
There's a great story that Todd tells about the time that he was jamming somewhere, and somebody was like, "Hey, Jimi Hendrix is down the hall. Does anybody want to jam?" And Todd just left. He was like, "No, that sounds like a mistake. That sounds like how I quit music."
That is so typical. Yeah,
Do you collect any Todd Rundgren stuff?
not really.
No.
Just have, as I say, I miss my bowling shirt.
Oof.
That was
Yeah, I'm fixated on that. I'm glad you brought it back up. I'm fixated that you didn't get to keep that.
I just lost it. I don't know what happened. I mean, I honestly, I misplaced it.
Yeah.
You know? But in terms of collecting anything, no, because it's not that I have an aversion to that in a particular way. It's just folks have to understand that while my involvement in Utopia was extremely brief,
Yeah.
and I played with a lot of other bands outside of that band, and but I will say that the influence of working with Todd would be the honesty that I had to the air of honesty that I had to operate under as an artist cut through the crap. And I remember Todd sitting on my deck, and I was complaining that I wanted to get back into really playing now, because I was getting itchy to do it. And again, he kind of like drilled down on me. He said, look, man, you got to do it. You can't pay attention to the money all the time. You can't be paying
Mhm.
attention to the money all the time. You've just got to shut up and do it. And I don't know. I consider that, and I took and even back when we were in the studio with Touch, again, and working on demos at his house and working with Utopia and cutting through the crap and getting to the meat of the matter in terms of being honest as a writer, being
Sure.
honest as a composer, being honest as a player, and in some cases embracing, your limitations. You
Mhm.
know, man's got to know his limitations, but it's true. Embrace what you are, not what you want to be. You know,
Mhm.
and then work from there. You know,
Yeah.
so in terms of collecting anything, I'd say a very sober look at being a musician is what I collected.
Wow.
Okay.
I like that, man.
I like that.
That's very
So
impactful. That's cool.
I collect a lot of Todd stuff, and I have, as James knows, I have a pretty insane collection.
You got
Yeah,
my bowling shirt.
I
No, I
I
don't have
do
the bowling shirt. I don't have the bowling shirt.
I did
But
too. I intentionally hid all of my Todd posters from you today just to make sure that we didn't
yeah,
come off as freaks. So
yeah, I have a lot in the
it was
up
intentional.
up here. Up
You
here, you
said,
can't see this.
yeah. You
Okay.
said, "Oh, do you
But
remember cassettes?" That's all of the Todd cassettes
You
right
guys are
there.
creeping me out. I'm out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah. We didn't want to do that to you. So
but I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
we did a lot of research about your history of your career in music
Mhm.
and Todd.
Uh-huh.
We've heard I did some research that you're a star in a movie.
Oh shit! You're fucking up the show and tell. You're fucking up the show and tell. All right.
Yes, I wouldn't say that I'm a star, but I am a central character in
Of a promo tape sealed
All right.
of
Here we go.
Tepte.
certain scene involving myself, Rick Derringer, and Ian Hunter,
All
and
right. So
yeah,
I've got it pulled up. I've got it pulled up. Doug Howard, this is your life. Can you
oh,
see my what I'm sharing on my screen, Doug?
I see watch stream. Do I have to click
Yep.
on that?
Go ahead and click on
Yep.
that.
Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. There I am.
Yep, yep, there you are right there. So I got the audio cut out for obvious reasons because there's a tune. But I'm just gonna play the scene here. And
Wow.
I don't know when the last time you saw this, Doug. When was the last time you saw this?
I have no idea. But yes, I was oh my God, there's oh, what's her name? Oh jeez. There's Ian.
Ian Hunter, yeah,
Yeah,
Ian,
there's
yeah.
you.
Oh, there I am back
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's Rick Derringer's back. There's Todd next to me. I forgot who that is. Yeah, and
And there's you.
I was the drug dealer in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Todd said, I got a phone call from Mary Lou, and she said, Todd needs you down at 1 Fifth Avenue. We're shooting a movie, and he wants you to dress Max's Kansas City era. We've redone the entire interior of 1/5 as Max's back room. And I
Wow.
knew exactly what had to happen. And the next thing I know, Todd has me sit next to him at the table and hands me a bunch of pills and somebody threw it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
somebody threw some somebody threw some of that at us, and that didn't last very long.
yeah.
And the whole point of this is that, Todd got really kind of disillusioned with the whole glam party thing that was going on at Max's, and he kind of walked away from that. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
that was kind of the purpose of this whole scene. They asked me to stay over there in the corner, and it was supposed to be the after party, the Derridus of the
Yeah.
bacchanal that was Max's back room. And you got to remember, I was 14 years old hanging out back there back in the day.
Wow.
That's insane.
That's
Really no
wild.
business being in that room, but for whatever reason, there I was.
But yeah, I remember this scene very much. I just remember being like, why did he let that guy drown? I didn't understand the like symbolism of it. Like, your friends, you try to get them to help, but they end up
There he goes. He's going
drowning.
in.
Yeah, there he goes.
Who is that? Who's that?
I
Please,
don't know.
I forgot who that is, but he's trying to help him.
Yeah,
But
he is. He is.
I think I don't know. I can't. I'm being presumptuous in terms of saying what Todd's message is. I think a lot of times the artist is going to throw that out and it's for you to interpret. But I think that image is pretty clear
Yeah, for sure.
as to what he's kind of
Yeah.
putting forth there.
Yeah,
It's
but when I was 3 years old, I was just like, what's he doing? What's
oh well.
yeah, yeah.
I
But
don't know
now
what
I get it.
I don't know what your parents were doing. Like jamming
Yeah,
this in your
my
head.
parents, even when I got older, they hid this VHS from me because there's a scene in it where he gets his face gets superimposed on the body of a nude woman. So by the time I was like 12 and I was like, yeah, where is that Tepte VHS at? They're like, we'll tell you when you're older, man. We don't really want you to I'm like you, and now I'm like, you do realize you gave me unfettered internet access. Like I didn't need to look at a Todd tape for my nudity. And
I guess
my dad's like, yeah, well, we were trying.
they gave it some thought. I
Yeah.
I remember being up at Todd's house when production for this thing was still going on. And he had an absolute army of people doing all kinds of things. And I don't remember if it made it into the movie or not, but there was this whole thing going on with Sugar Man. And Sugar Man was a statue that was made out of sugar. And the thinking of it is that he was supposed to have some kind of liquid poured over him, and it was supposed to, he was supposed to melt. And I think they were going to superimpose, or I don't know, but Sugar Man went on and on and on and on. We couldn't seem to figure out a way amongst the people that were there to make a Sugar Man that wouldn't fall apart. And I don't know how much time was spent on this, and what a shame. But I know that God, everybody was so earnest and so, and if one thing didn't work, then they'd try something else with something else that was going on. But the people that all were involved in producing that, it was really really marvelous to watch. The enthusiasm and just all these wild creative people just like throwing themselves into this movie.
Wow.
And I don't know whatever happened commercially with it. I didn't know, and of course I haven't seen that scene since I think I dug it up a number of years back just on a wild whim on YouTube, and I happened to find somebody had isolated that scene And I said, "Oh my God, I should know. What have I done? No one, no wonder nobody will talk to me anymore."
Yeah.
But
Is there anything else that you remember from that you can recall event wise for them making Tepte
of making that movie,
of the movie? Yeah, the movie Tepte.
I just know that it was an army effort, and people really they really threw themselves into this. I mean, hours upon hours during the day. They were just at a fever to make this vision happen. I remember, what was it, the Todd telling me that, yeah, so we were out on the beach and they had that
The
little,
dome.
the
The
dome.
dome
Yeah.
lit on fire.
Yeah, and he said, well, we kind of got in trouble because we didn't have a film permit and we didn't have a fire permit
Wow.
and we
Wow.
didn't have any kind of permit, and we
Holy shit.
just sort of showed up and built this thing and then set it on fire, and that probably wasn't a really good idea.
Oh my God. I fucking
But
love
we
that.
got shot, I mean,
Yeah.
but I remember him telling me, they said, wow, I said, it sounds like something you and I would do. You know, there goes the garden shed again.
Yeah, that's funny. Zach, how much do you fucking love that? Because I fucking love
Oh, I
that.
fucking love it. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, actually, another question. The scene with the like a sousaphone like hole thing
Mm.
when he crawls in. Were you around when they were filming that at all?
I
You know what I'm talking
forget.
about?
I forget what I was up there for. I probably just was hanging around the house. We used to do that. I don't remember specifically what I had come up for. I think it might have been somebody's birthday or something. But at that time, the whole Woodstock scene of all the creatives in Woodstock was kind of, everybody was kind of moving around. Oh, so and so's birthday, oh, coming up for this, or so and so's doing
Mhm.
that. It wouldn't have anything to do with Todd necessarily, but Todd or and the crew, we'd all sort of be there. It's a small community, so.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't remember why I was there, but I do remember the Sugar Man.
That is cool. That is cool about like the Todd community. Like everything's very small but very
Yeah.
large. Like
Yeah. Uh, I just think the enthusiasm that comes, that he generates, uh, and uh, it's just the freedom to create. I mean,
yeah.
I really consider myself lucky at this point because I sold my company,
Okay.
and I had actually Todd in mind when I did that. I said, that's enough of this, music industry scumbag persona.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Did you become the guy who would then sit down other 22-year-olds and go, all right, you got your $1 million company. Here's how it really is. You're in a
Yeah.
maintenance now, motherfucker.
uh,
Did you become that?
I wasn't really that guy because I really didn't have a lot of patience with a lot of the younger artists. I'm not a very good teacher in that regard, but occasionally I would, somebody that I felt was really gifted and I wanted to keep them out of trouble. As a matter of fact, a young lady that I think is just a spectacular talent, and I met her years ago, Nicole Zakritis, who just won Best Vocal Jazz Album, won her first Grammy.
Wow, last night.
Oh
Wow, that's
shit.
crazy.
Hell yeah.
I first met her a number of years ago when she was playing in some stinky jazz club downtown, and she was my girlfriend was really crazy about her. She said, "You got to hear the singer. You've got to hear the singer." And I heard her, and it was like, "Oh man,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, this is something." And she was not a neophyte to the business, but she just started peppering me with questions, and I tried to like steer her away from lizards, really,
Yeah.
just how to
Yeah.
recognize a lizard. If it
Yeah.
looks like a lizard and it barks like a lizard, it's probably a lizard. But yeah, so I hit a point in my life where my wife passed away about 8 years ago, and that whole
Oh.
process
Oh.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure, man.
But the process of figuring out where I fit in kind of culminated in my just going back to being a player. That's all I do. That's all I do. Uh, whether I suck or not is another story, But not to sound too corny, but it is kind of true. I kind of had a couple of conversations that I'd had with Todd in mind when I did that, because again, it was back to honesty and being an artist, you know.
Yeah.
That's it's demanded, and audiences know that if you're not delivering from the heart, an audience knows. They can just sense it.
Yeah.
And so, stop being a poser, you know,
Yeah.
just throw yourself into it, man, and throw yourself into the jaws, see what happens, whether you get chewed up and spit out or somebody pats you on the head,
Yeah, I
so.
think in regards to that and Todd, I think Todd now 50 years on, crazy to say half century, but he really acknowledges that he got lucky by having a label that enabled him and allowed him to have that creativity without being muddled down by the selling an LP's worth of tunes, just getting by till the next album, and then hoping, he always had the fallback of producing a Touch or producing a Lords of the New Church, Psychedelic Furs, obviously,
Yep.
XTC.
Stiv.
Yeah,
Shout out to Stiv.
I was up there for those sessions.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, the first sessions?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I got to hang out
I
with
fucking love that album. It's so good.
Richard and his brother. They're a couple of really, really sweet guys. They really are. Really great guys.
Love the first. So good.
But I think he really knows now. Maybe he knew 30 years ago when he was trying to ditch the record industry, but still able to do the same thing. I think maybe that's when he really hit him, post Patronet and all that. But he was really allotted a lot of rope to not have to worry about that. I'll just go produce an album and pay my bills that way. Here's Healing,
Mm-hmm.
when Healing, I wasn't there, but my dad was, and my dad is by no means a super fan of Todd, but he was definitely worked at Record Bar for a number of years and was able to listen to a lot of different music back then. But even when his friends went home for closing the shop, oh yeah, new Todd Rundgren album, drop the needle on Healing and go, fuck is this, man? This isn't raw. Like this isn't oops. Like what the fuck is this? But that's Todd. He was able to do that in the same way that he did the dubstep album in 2013 or Liars, a fucking house music album in 2004. So,
well, imagine like Todd Rundgren making a house album or dubstep album where every other classic rock artist was just playing the same songs over and over again. Where Todd was like, "Fuck this shit, I'm doing my own thing." Yeah. That's why we love Todd. That's why Todd is God.
Those motherfuckers in that audience wanted to hear Leroy Boy though. They didn't.
as young guys, like me and James are both 30.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many concert I've seen Todd in concert over 50 times. You know how many times I've gone to shows where people are like, play the fucking hits. Yeah. Fuck you.
But it's interesting.
Fuck you, Todd.
Because
and I'm saying like just fucking like listen to him. Like he's the shit. Like
but now he's back at it. I think he's come full circle in a lot of ways. Again, parasocial relationship. I only am the observer looking in. I think he, much like you, Doug, has kind of revisited it in a very calm way, not in a way to alienate anymore. Like he'll come out, he'll do Open My Eyes, play a Nas tune, and then he'll go into Leroy Boy. And then he'll, play a couple of songs that other people want to hear. And then next thing you know, he's playing Lost Horizon.
Mhm.
and you're like, oh wow, shit, hell yeah, go Todd. Okay, now I'm hearing it. And then he'll play Fair Warning, and you go, yeah, okay, this part's for me. The rest was for everybody else. Now he's doing both. And I think he's really earned into that. So
I I don't know. My friendship aside, I can't be presumptuous. I can't be presumptuous to overthink, why a certain artist, who claims that kind of territory in terms of being free, why they do what they do, but not to oversimplify, but it's like kind of like a box of chocolates, man.
yeah,
And the artist is the one that, is bringing the chocolates.
Yeah.
You open the box and it's like you either like this one or you don't like that one, and it's and to try to crawl into an artist's head,
yeah,
you know uh I don't know if don't read too much into a lot of stuff that happens, because in the creative process it just happens.
yeah,
I mean, feet don't fail me now. That came when I'm a real lightweight in terms of getting high.
okay,
And I was really high one day, and I'm talking to Todd, and he looks at me and he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm looking at you, but I'm talking to myself." Bingo, song.
Yeah.
Honest to God. And people ask, like John Lennon, like there was the thing where this, he was talking about how people read all this stuff into the Beatles lyrics, and he said, "I have to be honest with you. It's all gobbledygook. It's all nonsense. It's just the words happen to sound good."
yeah. Helter Skelter was just a slide.
Exactly. Exactly. And in terms of this thing that I'm doing, I kind of, not to think too deeply into it, but it's kind of my way of thanking Todd for having that conversation with me
Hmm.
Awesome.
a number of years ago, where he just said, "Stop being such a fucking poser and just goddamn do it."
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where that's at.
Yeah.
So,
I like that, man. I really like that you're approaching it in that way.
Yeah.
I think that's
so
really cool.
yeah, his style of writing and his style of thinking and his freedom of thought, that left a very, very, very big impression on me way, way many years ago, and it never left me.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm grateful for that gift,
Yeah.
Good.
that
Yeah.
insight. Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
My final question, as uh, as I pose to a former utopian. Last year, Spotify lost the rights, and fuck Spotify. I'm just gonna go out there and say that.
Yeah.
I've
Fuck them. Yeah.
fuck Spotify.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
yep. Spotify lost the rights to the '82 Utopia album. Any idea as to why?
Uh, just look at the roots of Spotify, and the whole.
But it's
Like,
only that album. It's only that.
and that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about
Album.
why certain stuff gets pulled and eventually, renegotiated back. I
Okay.
don't. Lawyers do their things,
Okay.
and I used to be very deeply involved in that sort of stuff in terms of negotiating rights and chasing down misuses, and because I was given the responsibility by the record labels in terms of handling their materials, in terms of promotion, and with that comes a certain level of responsibility.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I am so glad to be not a part of that. But I can tell you that that's lawyers in love.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
lawyers in love. Who
Do
wrote
you s- do,
that song? That is a song. I remember that. Somebody did a song called "Lawyers in Love." I
That's
have to
good. That's good alliteration. If it's not a song,
Yeah.
it should be a song.
Yeah.
find that.
Yeah, I was always curious why it was just that album, and the only difference between that album and the other ones is it's not on Bearsville and it's not on Passport. It's on Network.
It's
So
crazy.
something must have happened there.
I
I don't know.
remember when I was a little kid, I had that album cover hang in my room. It was
The
my. It
Network
was.
album.
It was my mom's. It was like a cardboard cutout from a record store, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I only knew "Hello, It's Me" and stuff, and my mom liked Todd.
One of the things I can tell you about that album was Todd had it in his head that he wanted us to be able to write a song and record it and have it ready for mix a day. Each day we had to walk in and do that. Again, that blew my mind because I remember the first Touch album, first major production that I had ever been involved with. It took 7 months to record that album, and I thought I thought I was gonna die. But when I walked in and Todd said, "Okay, what we're gonna do is we're going to write a song a day. That's the rule, then we're gonna get it. We're gonna learn it. We're going to write it. We're going to learn it. We're going to lay it down." And I just thought that was, I thought that was great. I thought that was fantastic. It's like, how honest can you get? You got no time to horse around. Well, gee, maybe if we add like a 47th layer of strings over here, and
Oh,
you know, now make the song carry it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. You can
That's
fall
very
in love
cool.
you can fall in love with sounds and completely lose the
Yeah.
fact that you're supposed to have a song there.
Yeah.
But I mean, music is moved like, Todd getting into dubstep, I totally understand that. Because I'm watching, what's happening in terms of the sort of de-evolution of melody and chord structures and traditional songwriting. If some folks find that really alien and they really can't wrap their heads around, what the hell is going on here? This is not music. This is disposable. And it's like, you got to let the art form do what it's going to do. And if you can't clue into it, uh, then that's not what you should be listening to. Or if you are one of those kind of people that just like absolutely has to have music in your life, uh, open your eyes a little bit, your ears, and see what's going on in terms of the evolution. I don't know. It's all
Yeah.
about
Well, in the same way that when Wendy Carlos did switched on Bach, or is
yeah,
whatever it was.
yeah,
All of the purists, the Bach purists, fuck. Never thought that would be a phrase that came out of my mouth. Were like, oh, I can't believe this, but really, it's where things were going. It was the future, and a Bach purist who Bach, and Ludwig van Beethoven both tried to make their own instruments because they were like, oh, I'm sick of this violin thing, like what else can we do with this?
yeah.
It's not too different than all that, so it only lends to itself.
It's not, but surviving it as an artist, that whole paradigm
Okay.
is I don't know where it's going to go. You know, I mean, I was very, very, very fortunate that this business gave me a living and allowed me to take care of my family and put my kids through good schools and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of look at what's going on now, and Todd did a symposium, which I caught at a university, where he talked about the history of music going from being a commodity, where as soon as the cylindrical Edison invented the cylinder recorder, music then, became a physical commodity. And all the way up to Napster, from all that entire period of time, music had a physical attribute, a physical manifestation that you could market and you could put a value on. And now, you know, everybody complains about Spotify and everybody complains about streaming, the streaming rates and this and that and the other thing. And on the one side of the coin, I kind of fear for, the new artists that are coming up in terms of, how are these kids gonna, you know, make it worthwhile for them to create. But then again, you've got how many hundreds of thousands of songs that are being uploaded to Spotify daily. That's the one dichotomy. And the other dichotomy is that people don't want to pay for music. They don't.
Yeah.
which
What
sucks.
happened with cylinders and records and CDs and tapes and so forth, that forced people to pay for the commodity. But given their, and Todd said we were minstrels before this,
Wow.
and we are minstrels yet again. And that's incredibly true, spot on. And if anything, I kind of wonder, but then again, I'm old. How does it affect me necessarily?
Yeah.
I've got so much, I'm seeing
Well,
more.
it's good that you do care for the future.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
hard
that's more than I can say about other folks of your
because we're
ilk.
young guys. Like we want to make music, and it's like back in the day, it's completely different. Like now, like I could just literally upload to YouTube right now. I could make a song right now.
Right. And for those people out there that music is like food,
Yeah.
there's a lot of folks
Yeah.
out there like that.
Well, and you think about how going back to you as the artist, think about what you had to do in between Edgar shows and hopping on Todd's shows doing jingles. They don't have us doing jingles anymore. It's AI.
Oh,
Yeah. So there's no work in between gigs, for
no,
artists these days.
ton of stuff going on back then, but that was then and this is now.
Yeah.
And yes, we've got a bucket full of problems as a species,
Sure.
but the art is still being created, whether it's music or whether it's, fine arts or whether it's theater, or dance, or what have you. It is still being made compulsively.
Yeah.
And that was kind of always what it was with me, is even though I, may have drifted into the business and I may have sat down for a period of time, music was compulsive with me. It was when I did my solo album for MTM Records, and I completely pissed off my audience with that. That album was like out there, man, but that's what was in me. I tried to
Yeah.
explain, I
Really
said,
good. I listened to it today at work. It was
what,
really good.
Last Man Standing
Yep.
is
Last Man Standing. Yeah. It's really good.
it's a very heavy album, and people were expecting a follow-up to Stun Lear, which was a very melodic rock album, very European, because that's kind of where a big chunk of, I don't know, my followers that's where they are, and they were expecting that. And I remember finishing that album and turning it into the label, and we all sat there and we went, okay, well, this thing's got a lot of balls, and it's definitely in your face, but ain't Stun Lear. Are you ready for the backlash?
Ooh.
What happened was I got a whole bunch of other people suddenly, into that album that thought Stun Lear was like, just bleh, and suddenly, so I don't apologize for that at all, man, at all. And it because again, it came from, that's where my head was at. Recently, I had our current label that I'm involved with, Deco, ask me if I wanted to re-release Last Man Standing. And I said, sure, it needs a remix because I never felt that it was mixed or mastered properly. And so I went and had it remixed, and it's sitting in one of my folders here. But the label wanted 2 new songs. They wanted bonus tracks to re-release it. Makes sense. I understand. I couldn't do it. I sat down and I started writing and I started, doing the stuff. It just wasn't doing it for me. And it suddenly occurred to me after about like 3 or 4 weeks of doing this, I don't write like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't sing like that.
That's hard. That's hard. Yeah.
I'm not the same person. My head isn't there. It's not in that place. I had, at that time, I don't know, I had like, 40 some odd years of rage, built up, and it came out in that album. I'm not that angry anymore. I'm not that. So,
I
it's,
have a genuine question about that and being a minstrel, though, and I am sorry to interrupt, but do you feel like you could perform those songs with the same ferocity?
no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Why would I want to? Why would I want to
Why
torture
would you want to?
Oh, so I can have videos like Vince Neil has out on
Okay. Yeah.
YouTube, and
That's a pretty solid example. That's a good one. Yeah.
or half of these guys. Yeah, I think that's probably the best one. There is absolutely
That's
no way
good.
I'm doing that to myself or the
Okay.
people happen to like my music.
Yeah.
That was then. That's what I was doing then.
Yeah.
This is your cells in your body. They're completely new every 20
So,
years.
so with that, how did you rekindle your working relationship with touch?
Yep. Still the words on my mouth. That's about
Said
to ask
no.
that.
Said no for about 2 years. um, honestly, they said to us at one point, you guys are OGs, and you're unique in the fact that all four members are still alive or can still perform, and it would be nice to have something from you before something happens to you. It's like a bad mafia movie. Be nice to do an album before something unfortunate happens. I mean, but I laughed about it. But I don't know. I really like Deco. I really like Charlie and the guys behind that label. I really like those guys, and I knew they'd do a good job. And so we said finally yes, and we got into the studio, and it'd been like 46, 47 years, man.
Yeah.
So we did some
It's
vocals.
insane.
Yeah, so we did some vocals, and they were a semblance, enough of a semblance that okay, we obviously have that kind of unique blend that only the three of us singers in the band have. And then we just started working on it. And the other two guys, after Touch had sort of disbanded, they didn't play after that. They did nothing except, they went into the straight world. And uh,
Oh, they mean they went professional, as in they
Yeah.
got jobs. Okay.
no,
I
they
was
went.
I was like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, they grew up. That's the joke.
Yeah,
Okay.
they grew up. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I see the joke now.
it's
Okay.
pretty sad to watch, but yeah, they became adults. And I uh, I know it sounds kind of altruistic, but there are a lot of reasons why I could say no to that. There's a lot of reasons why I could say no to that project.
Yeah.
But in particular, Craig Brooks, the guitarist, I think is an absolute monster of a talent, always was.
Hmm.
Probably one of the greatest voices in rock and roll that has never been heard. And Glenn is no slouch either. And as much for them as for anything else, I said yes to the tour
Cool.
because they honestly they deserve it. They deserve it. They
Yeah.
deserve to be able to walk out in front of 4 or 5 thousand people and know what that feels like. You
Cool.
know,
That's
uh,
cool.
That's awesome, man. I'm
uh,
glad that you were able to put differences aside.
don't get carried away.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying. He saw my face. I was trying to be diplomatic in my response and give the fans as well as your friends something that everybody wanted. So that's really cool.
That's
Um,
cool.
and that's the other thing too, is that these people that have followed Touch all these years after the band, long after the band, should have dried up and blew away, and it didn't. It
Yeah.
stuck around. You couldn't kill it with a stick for some reason. Uh, those people, just as much, I would get letters, from people saying what this song meant to them and that meant to them.
Wow.
And particularly in Europe, these people are so loyal that and they're so enthusiastic in their, I can't believe you guys are coming. I can't believe you're getting back together. I can't. Oh my God, you got to do it for that. I mean, really. I mean, just to be, to you don't really know how songs like affect people when you do them, and then when you hear these stories of, well, I was listening to this song that you did, and it really got me out of this, and it really turned my head around on that. And you're going, wow, man, I don't know, I was high as hell when I
Yeah.
wrote. It.
That's
Uh,
that's a very great like mindset like point like you're writing music and like you're just writing your songs and people like it change their lives and you're sitting back there like wow I just changed this dude's life
Yeah. Well,
like
I think
holy
that
fuck it's
well, I can't say I've gotten like tons and tons of those because it's not like I sure as hell ain't Taylor Swift, that's for sure.
mm,
But
no
the base that we seem to still have, and younger kids too, that their folks turned them on to the band. But
cool.
anyway, to be able to go out and look at that kind of an audience
Yeah.
and give it to them, hopefully in some kind of semblance of what it's supposed to be, which you can't say no. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't say no to that kind of devotion and thank you, because
Yeah.
every artist is looking for validation, man, ultimately. I mean, you can sit there and do stuff for yourself and be honest about what's coming out of yourself, but there is also an element of, you're looking for validation. And to get that from an audience 46 years later,
Wow. That's crazy.
you
I can
know,
think of myself when I was playing in basements in Akron, Ohio, and I would play songs, be like, this song emphasized my life, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then like, I'm 30 now. It's just like 12 years ago, 15 years ago. They're like, man, when you played in basements, man, that was so cool. Like, that was so cool. Like, you spoke to me, and I'm like, okay. I,
yeah, I mean, they're not being weird, man. They're just, I mean,
and I'm a nobody. I'm just a guy in a basement in Akron, Ohio.
but your music is just as valid, man, because it's coming from you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. I'll close on, I guess, this, because there's the other side of it.
Sure.
So I ran into this DJ in Chicago a number of years ago, and the guy said, "Yeah, I do weddings on the side, and you have no idea how many people ask for 'I'm looking at you, but I'm talking to myself' to be played as their first dance." That
Wow.
was
That's
like
awesome.
a big song and I said, "Really? Have you read the lyrics? That's like the coldest friggin' breakup song. I'm looking at you, but I feel nothing." And it's so romantic, and it's like I'm looking at you, but and I'm going, wow. Well, okay, I guess they really like the music. They really like the melody.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, brother.
yeah,
Well, Zach and I really, really appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
and
it's been fun.
Yeah.
talking
It was
all
awesome.
the fun
It's
stuff
fucking
with
awesome.
you.
If you guys want to see us, please reach out. Give me impetus to keep doing this. It's kind of,
Mhm.
if you'd like to see Todd Light.
Todd
I'm telling you, if you play
L-I-T.
Akron, Cleveland, you would be a star.
The low calorie Todd.
People
No,
would show up.
love to
People would
come.
show up.
We would love to come to Chicago. Please reach out. Tell us where. Tell us who. Tell us how.
Yeah.
I'll pass it.
I think Cleveland Music Box Supper Club would definitely be
Oh
your
yeah.
place.
Okay, I would like to plug Bill Bricker, who is,
Absolutely.
he's an incredible artist.
Very good character to plug.
Mhm.
Very
Yep.
good friend of the show.
Can I ask you one more question before you leave? So
Yeah,
my
sure.
girlfriend plays Schecter basses.
Ah, yes.
What do you got to say about that?
I like Schecter's off the rack. As a matter of fact, I was having a conversation with Kaz about it.
I've seen a lot of pictures of you playing Schecters, so like I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about that.
Well, actually, I was talking. I remember talking to Kaz about this because thing about Schecter's, they're really, they're inexpensive. They're straightforward. They have a lot of really really cool wacky designs. Um, although I really did favor Warwick streamers
Mm.
for a long time, particularly when I went to 5 string. But when I was playing 4 string, I liked Schecter's because you could pick one up off the rack
Yep.
and it was ready to go.
Yep.
You didn't have to, rip it apart. I have a Fender 5 string P bass that I bought specifically for the Touch Tour, and I had to completely replace all the components, everything, pickups, everything had to be replaced.
Wow.
Wait, was this a new one?
It was
Or
yeah,
if it
it
okay.
was a reissue,
Okay. Yeah.
fancy,
I
fancy reissue. But I
I
was
get
talking to
that.
Ken about it because I ran into him at a show, and I was visiting, and I complimented him on the sound that he was getting out of the bass that night. It was just perfect, absolutely perfect. He says, "You know what it is? It's an off the rack Schecter that I plugged direct."
Hmm.
I said, "Wow."
Wow.
So I have to give Schecter some props, even though Warwick Framus does amazing stuff for me, but I have to give Framus, or rather Warwick, props on that. Off the rack, they're ready to go.
Very cool, man.
Oh,
Well, cheers, Doug. We really appreciate the time.
Doug,
We
thank
hope
you so much.
we hope to
We'll
see
keep
you
in
on the
touch.
nod to Todd. Yeah, keep in touch, and
Yep.
good luck on your trek across the pond for your touch tour later this year as well.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of time between then and now. All kinds of things can happen. You never know.
That's right. That's right.
All
Awesome,
right.
Doug.
Guys want me back, just reach out anytime. I've really enjoyed
Yeah.
talking to you. Really great conversation. Really good.
Excellent. Fantastic, Doug. Really appreciate it, man. I'm going to disconnect you. You have a good one, all right?
All right.
Bye bye.
Yep, stay well.